Take a meeting.
The backup showed up. Brian's here. We're good to go. Thank you, Brian. Okay, good afternoon. Today is November 18th, 25. This is a special meeting of the Mid-Kings River Groundwater Sustainability Agency. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs is absent. Richard Valley.
Here.
Doug Verboon.
Here.
Rusty Robinson.
Here.
Robert Thayer.
Here.
Kimber Regan.
Here.
We have 5 members present, 1 absent. Would you all please rise for a pledge of allegiance? Please follow me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll move to unscheduled appearances. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on items of interest within the board jurisdiction and which are not already on the agenda. The board will not answer questions impromptu, and concerns or complaints will be referred to the appropriate staff. For items which are on the agenda, members of the public will be provided an opportunity to address the board as each item is brought up for discussion. Speakers should limit their comments to 2 minutes.
I have no written correspondence, no speaker cards, and no one online has their hand raised.
And anybody in the audience want to add to our meeting today? Yes, ma'am. Come on, state your name and address for the record. And
my name is Desiree Woodworth. My address is 2607 14th Avenue, Kingsburg, California, 93631. I have a piece of property on Denver Avenue, which is in Kings County. So I attended Alta Irrigation District on November 13th, and I read a letter to them because when they made the districts for the GSAs, they left our area out. We are Alta, but they decided, made a mistake, and then they put us in Mid-Kings GSA. So I read a letter to them on November 13th asking for a recharge credit from Mid-Kings to give to Mid-Kings GSA from Alta, or if they could do a project that would benefit those in the APNs that are in Alta Irrigation District, but also in Mid-Kings. And they said since it's not on the agenda, they can either in the future put it or not put it in the future. So they basically gave me no answer because their lawyer said not to. And I thought that this is important because, we're being charged. I already received my property tax bill, and Alta Irrigation is charging me basically $3,400, and I'm not getting any benefit from it. And I figured they should give something to Mid-Kings GSA, because Mid-Kings is doing the heavy lifting with the water, and they're going to charge us, and so I think it's only fair that Alta does something, and also maybe somebody from Mid-Kings or Kings County maybe go to an Alta meeting and also represent this fact that there are people who are in Alta Irrigation District, but also in Mid-Kings, and that they should be given a credit.
thank you very much.
You're
And we'll have staff go to the meeting and take your concerns. So which is better, Mid-Kings or Alta? Very good. Well, we'll bring that up to them. We have good people here. So thank you very much for your concerns, and then we'll look into it and get back to you. We have your address. So
Hey, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
without replying to the unscheduled, can we at least ask Chuck if he's aware of, if they do any reimbursements, if they take money by mistake or they charge by mistake?
We haven't had conversations with Alta Irrigation District as of yet, but as requested, staff will go to speak with them. I will probably give them a call before their next meeting to have a discussion with them and see if something might be able to be agendized.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on now to item A, approval of minutes. Approval of the minutes from special meeting October 14th, 2025. Moved by Supervisor Robinson,
Second.
second by Supervisor Valley. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Would you like to check with the public?
How's the public doing on that? You guys have questions on the previous meeting?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, nothing like being corrected.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Robert Thayer,
Abstain.
Kimber Regan. Aye.
4 in favor, 1 abstention. We'll move on now to the next item, which is consent calendar. We have nothing. Move on to regular calendar and a stakeholder advisory committee update. Garrett Gilcrease. Morning, Garrett. Or good afternoon, Garrett.
How are you guys?
Good. How are you doing?
Oh, good, good. I'm back again. I mean, nothing has really changed. I mean, it's all been pretty status quo in terms of how we're approaching it and doing things. I think we're starting to get to the meat of it, though. I was going over with Amir not too long ago. And I mean, as long as you guys approve everything we've kind of honed and given to you, I mean, I think we're on track to get something to the state here fairly soon. Is it what everyone wants? Is what everyone likes? No. But it's the best we can do with the cards we're dealt. Yeah. And I think we made it as open and as flexible to give people the ability to plan, move things around and adapt, which is all we can really ask for in something you're dealing with a state like this. So things are going well in that regard. Yeah, that's it. So if you guys have any questions for me, great. If not, then that's kind of it.
No, thank you for coming. I know I attended the meeting last week and I felt some frustration from you guys because we want public input. And there was a comment made in the back of the room and then someone says, well, why in the hell we hear you do whatever you want? And, you know, Mr. Toss got up and spoke about his concerns about not having a plan in place and, you know, suing the government and how long it takes and you never win. But I think it's important that people understand that this is the time that we speak up. And, you know, a year and a half ago, I remember going out to Coney Church and everybody's mad because no one had been considered to have their input.
Yeah.
And now we are asking people for input and no one's saying anything. So it is frustrating, but
That's a story age of time. I mean, everyone who's married knows that, right? I mean, so and so I think in this regard, though, you contrasted that. I mean, one of the things having the grower stakeholder committee, I mean, those are open to the public. We have people coming in and out of those. We didn't have that last time. And the adherence to the rules is a big one too. I mean, last time it was kind of flippant. At least that was my
do you feel
perception.
confident? I mean, I appreciate what you guys are doing. And I made a comment that, you know, we're not going to make the policy up here. We're going to approve the policy brought to us by the growers. And so I think maybe what I see is maybe the community is comfortable with what you guys are doing and they trust you. So they don't have to be in an argument or display their displeasure.
I don't know if it's that or putting your head in the sand. I mean, we live in California. You're surrounded by bad news every day. This is just another Tuesday, right? Until it becomes real. So I think it's going to get interesting. I also think that while we as a grower committee are trying to put these things together, having your guys' support and input as to how those are adjusted is going to be good. It can't just be on us, right? It can't just be on you. It's got to be kind of a marriage hand in hand together. And so in that regard, I'd be lying to myself and everyone here if I don't think people are going to have a problem with it. But when you look at it at the end of the day, we are doing the best thing possible for the people of Kings County with the tools we are given. And I don't think anyone can claim that we're not doing that. And the other one is being open and honest with everybody. I think that from the grower committee meetings to Amir here to our outreach events, we are doing everything different compared to last time in terms of having the cloak is completely open on this deal. So if you want to ask questions, you're here. You want to see this, they're here. And that was really the crux of what people were angry with last time, is you're going to something so big and so new and so possibly financially crippling, and having this veil of secrecy in front of you, that really scared people. I don't see that now. I think they understand what's happening. It's not new. And we're doing the best we can. That's all you can do. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. We do appreciate your guys' hard work. I think I stated it before. Means a lot. Take the pressure off us. So, and you have the ears and the eyes of the community to see what they want us to do. I mean, we're limited what we can do, but I think as long as everybody understands, they can kind of be ready for it. I think it's time to start imposing the restrictions so we can at least start working with it in our own way.
Yeah. Yeah. And keeping control here is big. Yeah. Rather than Sacramento.
Very
So
good.
that'd be good.
Any questions from the board?
Cool. All right. Thanks, guys.
Any question from the audience? Anybody got any questions from Garrett?
Oh,
You're
we're
good.
good.
You're
All
good.
right.
All right.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
Okay, we'll move on now to item B, update on appellate court ruling on Farm Bureau versus State Water Board. Jennifer Thompson, General Counsel.
I'll be presenting on that today, Mr. Chair, Lori Favini, County Counsel. As the board likely knows, there's a recent court ruling in Kings County Farm Bureau versus State Water Resources Control Board. As a little bit of background, in January 2025, GSA submitted their first joint groundwater sustainability plan for the Tulare subbasin to the Department of Water Resources. Between 2022 and 2023, Department of Water Resources determined the initial and then a revised GSP were inadequate. In October of 2023, the State Water Resources Control Board recommended that probationary designation be imposed on the Tulare subbasin under the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, SGMA. In April 2024, the Tulare subbasin was designated as probationary, which triggered statutory monitoring, reporting, and fee requirements. The Kings County Farm Bureau sued the Water Board, challenging multiple aspects of the probationary designation. The trial court issued a preliminary injunction blocking the Water Board from enforcing the probationary designation. And the decision solely decided the matter of the preliminary injunction. So the preliminary injunction will expire at the end of this month. There are other aspects of the litigation that continue to move forward. So in other words, the court rejected some of the claims. The case is proceeding, and we will keep the board updated as this moves forward.
Thank you. Any question for Lori? How about the audience? And everybody's all set. Okay, well, thank you for that report. We'll go now to item C, overview of updated timeframe and complete the GSP by Amir Hussein. Morning, Amir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just so anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Amir Hussein. I'm with GeoSyntech Consultants. We are the engineering consultants helping the Mid-Kings River GSA complete the SGMA requirements in their groundwater sustainability plan. I have a presentation that I was going to go ahead and start. Check. Okay. Perfect. All right. Yeah, perfect. So next slide, please. I'm just going to help orient everybody. I am going to, this same presentation is going to continue on to items E and F. So the timeline, I'll talk about the timeline, give you a little update on the GSA, and then items E and F will be covered under the well mitigation pilot program and the subsidence management policy. Next slide, please. So as I like to start all of these meetings, just to kind of help orient everyone again, it's been a month or two, usually between the times we meet. So you'll see a few of these slides repeated every time we meet. But just to orient everybody where the Mid-Kings River GSA is, how we are in relationship to the other GSAs within the Tulare Lake subbasin, and then the map of the GSA in purple there. And anybody in the audience or anyone online who would like a copy of that map, if you want to figure out where your property is, please contact Chuck and he'll be happy to provide that. It's also on the website as well. Next slide, please.
This is our best understanding of where the wells are based on the information provided by the state of California, the U.S. Geologic Survey, and Kings County permits. We will tell you that please take this with a huge grain of salt because we think that many of these wells are probably a little bit out of date, and we are in the process of having a well registry put together. And as we start to update that well registry, we'll update this map, of course, as well. It is more intended just to give you an idea of the sheer volume of wells and roughly where you see to the west, those tend to be some of the shallow wells in that area. And then as we move across eastward, the wells tend to get deeper. Next slide, please. This is the cumulative subsidence since 2015. And again, I don't necessarily want to start these meetings with bad news, but I always like to make sure that we kind of, like I said, reorient ourselves on these meetings. The blue is areas with minimal subsidence, and the red is the areas with the highest level of subsidence. And you can kind of see that on the south and central portion of Mid-Kings, extending into South Fork and then down south and east of us into the Quia and Tulare counties. Next slide, please. A quick update for the board on where we're at. We had it on our last meeting. We released the draft allocation policy for a 45-day public comment, which we are in until December 1. We have had a public comment workshop here in this area in this room last week. At about 50 or so attendees, roughly. Some pretty good discussion. Chairman Verboen alluded to that conversation. We've gotten some other comments back. We do, if any of you have your phones and you need a copy of the policy, please take a shot of that QR code up there or visit the website. The email address, the MKR GSA address that's listed up there is the address that we were receiving comments on. The phone number takes you to Chuck, so his personal phone. Please feel free to call him anytime. And then more importantly, we do have 2 social media sites set up now for Mid-Kings River GSA. The Instagram site and the Facebook site. So please, if you're not following us on those, please start following us using those 2 apps. They are probably the best place to get up-to-date information on what's going on with the GSA. I think we have got about 200 plus followers now on the Instagram, which we only set up a few weeks ago. So the word's starting to get out there. And obviously we're also using the email blast as well. And trust me, there are things that in a perfect world, we would have liked to have gotten started sooner on a few of the outreach efforts, but they are underway and they are moving forward, and we are starting to see some good feedback from people. I mentioned the in-person workshop last week. There is a virtual workshop on Wednesday of this week on the 19th at 6 p.m. We do have the Zoom link is available on our website, and our constant contact email went out earlier this week with that on there, and our social media sites also have that link on there. So we're hoping to have a good turnout for the virtual meeting on Wednesday night as well. And then we are continuing to prepare the RFP for the well registration platform and hope to get that done soon. It's in the process of being reviewed right now, and then we'll have that out and get that well registration platform up and running. And then we'll be doing a separate outreach campaign to let people know that that's up and running and that they have to register their wells and register their sites and their properties as well on that platform. Chuck.
So the RFP process, we're giving approximately 30 days for them to submit. It will be brought to the Stakeholder Advisory Committee to be able to review and potentially interview, depending on number and qualifications of candidates. And then it'll be brought to your board. Tentatively, it's for your board meeting in January.
Okay, so we won't have for the first of the year. It'll be March, April time we get it up and running. later?
I'm hoping for March.
Thank you.
Okay, next slide, please. All right, so this is what the actual item was about, was the update on the groundwater sustainability plan. The ones that have been crossed out are ones that policies that the board has approved. We are currently working on a stakeholder outreach plan that's in progress right now. The groundwater allocation program is out for public comment, as I mentioned, until December 1. The subsidence management plan, we are going to ask you to review and approve today. And then we are currently working on a water quality management plan. That one has been a little bit tricky. As council mentioned, we have not been, with the lawsuit in place, we weren't having any discussions with the state. So we've been waiting to see what their comments on, for example, Kauai and Kern, the two subbasins that got out of probation or avoided probation, I should say, what they were and how they address this water quality issue. Specifically, now that we have that information, we're in the process of revising our plan to kind of be similar to what they and what the state board has approved for those two. The SMC stand for the Sustainable Management Criteria. This is what happens and how we define undesirable results and the things that we want to avoid. Again, as I mentioned, both Kern and Kauai got approved, so we are updating our definitions based on what the draft we had in 2024 to be similar to what again was approved by the state board for those two. They are different than us, and it's not a cut and paste job, but it is to look at what they did and how the state would like some of that language in there to be included. So we're updating those. Those are in progress right now as well. And then in the next slide, I'm gonna show you a timeline of how all of this comes together. The idea is to submit the revised 2025 plan by March of 2026. And again, the reason for that is, as council mentioned, the lawsuit or the injunction has been removed at this point, or will be at November 30th, I should say. May 1 was the deadline that the state had for us to report our pumping numbers. Since September of 2024, or excuse me, July of 2024 through September 30th of 25, we have until May 1 of 26. We want to submit our document before that deadline and be able to make our request for exclusion for fees at that time. So, as I mentioned already, we've completed the groundwater measurement policy and well registration, the flow meter policies, the public recharge policy, domestic well mitigation program, and a subsidence policy as well. And then we are in the process of preparing the groundwater allocation, which we will be bringing to you in December for approval. The stakeholder outreach plan we'll be bringing to you in December as well, and the updated SMC definitions. We'll be bringing all of that to the board. The board will have to approve the two policies in the stakeholder outreach plan, but you don't have to approve the SMCs. We just want to let you know what those are going to say. In January, we'll bring you the groundwater quality policy and program for approval, and then we'll have a draft put together of the groundwater sustainability plan in February of 26. And then in March of 26 is when we expect to submit a draft of that document along with the request for exclusion from fees and a request for a good actor provision for this GSA in March of 26. And at that point, then we'll be continuing our discussions with state staff in the meantime, but we aren't waiting. They've indicated that they don't have time to talk to us until starting in December. And we frankly don't have time to wait for them, and we're just going to keep moving forward. We do. Are they too small? Was it really hard to read? Yeah. I understand. Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally understand. I'm going to stop right here because this gets into item, I believe, E. But I was going to stop and see if you had any questions on item C before the timeline, before we move on.
Any more questions, Supervisor Valley? Want to borrow my glasses? They don't make them any better. It just looks like you know what you're doing.
I think the bottom line, the bottom line is March, we have to submit because May is when they're expecting us to submit those pumping values. And we want to make sure that that request for fee exclusion, which they have granted to other GSAs, Delano Early Mart in the Tule Subbasin and Kern Tulare in the Tule Subbasin as well, both have gotten out of paying fees, and we want to be in a similar situation.
Okay, we have a question from Supervisor Robinson.
Just so to hit that March deadline, so I guess we're collaborating then with the other GSAs so that we have a GSP that
Yes.
everybody agrees on?
Yes, so what we have is the existing GSP from 24. We're modifying that. The areas that are common will be submitted, very similar to what Kern did, is they'll be submitted, and then we'll have some individual pages where each GSA will be able to have specific items that apply only to them. And those will be clearly marked, and we're calling them blue pages, quote unquote. And that's what Kern did, and that was acceptable to the State Water Board.
We start addressing things like the allocation, if there's different figures.
Yes, then those would be in the blue pages, and we would show those as being separate from, and specifically on the terms of the allocation. We're meeting, Chuck and I, and are meeting with the other GSA managers on Friday of this week to try and iron some of those issues out. So we are continuing to have those conversations specifically on the allocation to try and see if we can come up with one methodology for the entire subbasin. Yeah, it's an ongoing, it took Kuya 2 years to work that out. We're trying to do it in several months. Yeah. So it's been a little bit, I'm sure you've heard some of the, and you're going to bring it up in the next item, I think, some of the differences between us and South Fork as well.
If we could have worked together, we'd be done already.
I think if the state was willing to work with us a little bit more, that would have helped over the last year or so.
I just think our area is more unique than any other county in the whole state of California. If you drive, I drove through Madera County from 99 to I-5 the other day, and it was uniform. There was no lake in the middle of it.
Right.
There were no sandy areas. There's no nothing. So I can understand how they work better together. But where we're at, we have different irrigation districts, different amounts of water, different types of ground, different value of ground, extremely different values of ground. So if we could have come together, we would have done it, 3 years ago. So I hope that the state sees that and recognizes that it's extremely impossible to have one uniform GSP for all the county of Kings because it's so unique in the geography of it.
Yeah.
Any other questions? You have more to go?
I'm going to stop because I think item D is a separate topic. I think it's the South Fork topic. I'm going to stay up here, Chuck.
Do we have any questions from the public? No, nothing? Okay. That's all yours.
Perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon, board members. Chuck Kinney, General Manager for the Mid-Kings. At the Mid-Kings River GSA board meeting held on October 14th, the board took action to open a 45-day public comment period on the draft groundwater allocation policy. Since that date, staff have been actively working to advertise and solicit public comments on the draft groundwater allocation policy. To date, staff have held one in-person public workshop, which was mentioned earlier, with second virtual workshop scheduled for tomorrow, November 19th at 6 p.m. online. Please do attend. You can visit our website for the link. The Mid-Kings River GSA has received some public comments to date, but continue to actively seek additional comments on the draft groundwater allocation policy. Staff's plan is to present all of the comments received initially to the Stakeholder Advisory Committee for review and recommendation, which would then be presented to the Mid-Kings River GSA board. Since one of the comments which has been received comes directly from a neighboring GSA, I believe that it is important to present it to you today, to bring it to your attention, to ensure that you are aware of this specific comment letter, since board members may have constituents asking questions about this item. I wanted you to be able to see what it is and be prepared in case you get questions. In particular, the comment letter from the South Fork Kings GSA, which is included in your packet today, claims that the methodology used in the Mid-Kings River GSA for determining its allocation is not the correct methodology to utilize. They list concerns that the Mid-Kings River GSA allocation is much higher than the values used by other GSAs in the Tulare Lake Subbasin, and they have recommended that the Mid-Kings River GSA withdraw this policy and reissue a revised policy. Again, I'm not looking for any comments or input from your board today, as this is only an informational item, and this comment letter will be brought back to your board following the closure of the comment period after the Stakeholder Advisory Committee reviews all of the comments. And we will provide your board with a presentation which outlines the recommendations from the Stakeholder Advisory Committee. I just wanted to bring it to your attention, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer.
Just one questions. Yeah, just one. Is it those, what you just stated, it is that doesn't have anything to do with this ordinance that's before this board today?
The subsidence? No.
Right, okay. No. Just making sure.
Sure. So I read it 2 times. I'm not gonna say nothing crazy. Is it? So I read the letter 2 times. Is it, so I'm trying to understand, is this opposite of the situation we had with the city of Avenel, maybe like 2014 coming out of the drought, where Avenel had historically been, they had all, prior to any mandates from the state, if I remember right, they had already put an order out to the community on their water usage. So they were already conserving on their own. And then when the state came out and they put out their conservation mandates, they used the numbers that Avenel had already been doing on their own, which wasn't enough anyway. So then the state shaved off their numbers that they were already working on. So then we ended up having to go get emergency allotment of water for the community because they didn't last the whole year. So is this reversal where they're saying they were overusing, over pumping, and they're building their formula off of that instead of a more conservative amount?
So it's really a view of 2 different methodologies. What the Mid-Kings River GSA is looking at doing is utilizing historical use. So we've looked at how much water has been pumped out of the entire subbasin, and the percentage of the water pumped out of the subbasin from the Mid-Kings River is approximately 36% of the total pumped use. And then we took that number and have the sustainable yield number of how much water is able to be sustainably pumped out of the basin. And we said 36% of that then should come to the Mid-Kings. South Fork is looking at utilizing something that isn't based on historical use. They're just wanting what's termed, I didn't term it, a peanut butter spread, and saying there is this number of sustainable water available, and we just spread it equally across the entire subbasin on a per acre basis, even though that's not historically what has been done. And there are areas of the subbasin that are not capable of even utilizing the water because it won't reach them. So there's just a difference in philosophies and methodologies that are being used at this point. But I anticipate we will have recommendations coming back from the stakeholder to be able to provide your board with some good insights of how best to proceed.
Probably not a good time to comment back, but I got my own comment. So when it's time appropriate, you let me know. Because there's a different way we farm here than we do in South Fork King. I farm every inch of my ground, but they don't. They have people that farm, and they farm the ground they farm is miles away from where the well's at. And so, yeah, I think we need to take care of the people that farm the ground above them and the water below them first.
Speak your mind. Technically, it's on. It was agendized.
No, I know.
It's agendized.
I just think I think South Fork Kings has a bit bigger problem than to pay attention to what we're doing. They need to mind their own damn business, and they got.
I didn't know you were going to say all that.
They need to focus on their people that have bought ground and farming the water, not the ground. And we focus on people farming the ground, not farming the water. So we'd take care of our stuff, and if they can't handle it, you know, I started going to these meetings over 10 years ago, 11 years, 12, maybe 8 years ago. And we were told we shouldn't even be at some of the meetings. And so if you want to come to a meeting, that's fine, but don't criticize what we're doing when you should be minding your own business. Johnny.
I thought there was at least maybe a minor level conversation that South Fort Kings wanted to combine with Midtown.
Well, it is on a pumping restrictions, but again, it's different in Kings County. So I'm on Peoples Ditch, and I had my run of water was from May till August, early August. Lemore Canal ran from May until October. Everybody on the Lemore Canal system had access to water the entire year of farming. So there's no need to pump water. So they can have reduced rate that they have to pump if you're on Lemore Canal. If you're not on Lemore Canal, you're going to be like this. So there's going to be a difference of opinion. But if we could have came together with a general plan, we'd have already been together 2 to 3 years ago. But it gets worse when you go down the south part of the county because they farm hundreds of thousands of acres and their way of farming is different than ours. And so we can't criticize what they're doing because it has no bearing on what I do on my side. Then you got 2 GSAs that don't pump at all. And I just think we should focus on the small farmer, the person that farms the ground here and pumps the water below the farm, underneath the farm, and not the one that moves water. I think moving the water has got us in a situation, and we should have catered those people. I had a phone call on Saturday from a large grower that was complaining about another large grower pumping water to put on his cotton ground. And we should do something about it. I said, well, it's not our business. And, if they want to pump water out of the ground, they have their own GSA and their own GSP. They can work with those guidelines. But we can't tell them what to do. It wouldn't be right. We already showed a big divide to the state of California. That's why we're on probation. We need to mind each other's business and try to get our own GSP in place and move forward without having the state come here and run it for us. So we don't need any more letters. We can talk sidebar on it and work together, but I don't think we need to argue in front of the state. You told me to save my comments. Not really. Anything else, Chuck?
No, not on this item.
Okay. Anything from the audience? Nothing? Okay. Gonna move on to the next item. I do got a question about that picture.
It is not Kings County, if you're going to ask me that.
No, okay. So the black tank there is that like a separation tank where they pump into that first and then pressurize it, or is that just in case the well goes dry?
It's a holding tank. It's equalization in pressure. So you pump into that. There's usually a float nose, and that just allows so that the well's not constantly kicking out on and off, and you can provide a fixed amount of water to the house on a regular basis
Without overrunning your
pump. Yeah, without having to run the pump constantly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And a merit that also then provides an opportunity. So if your well is loses its pressure and it's a low flowing well, that is an option to be able to put a tank in place so that it can fill over time, and yet you still have the supply that you need for your
I just
house.
want the clay to separate before it gets into my shower head.
See that blue thing right there? That's called a flux capacitor. That's what makes time travel possible.
I got the flux capacitor of mine too, but it don't.
Any 80s fans in here?
You have to get it to 85 miles an hour though. All right. How do I always end up making reference to an ancient movie from the 80s every time I'm up here? I don't know what it is. Okay. So I am going to talk about the well mitigation program. And in this case, we are looking for some feedback from the board and approval from the board to move forward on this program. So next slide, please. So one of the things that we did is in the last board meeting, we approved a domestic well mitigation program. The domestic well mitigation program essentially has some requirements on what the GSA is going to require in terms of us going out and addressing some of the dry wells in the area, dry domestic wells in the area. The idea is that in our sustainable management criteria that I mentioned previously, we are going to allow groundwaters to continue to drop in some areas before we stabilize them. And we know that there are going to be some wells that are going to go dry, some domestic wells. We have built that into our plan. As part of that, we have this mitigation program so that we can address those concerns. We can make sure that those people are taken care of. So what we did was we went out to Self-Help Enterprises. Chuck and I went and met with them. We asked them how many wells they have currently inside of the Mid-Kings River GSA that are have gone dry because of falling water levels. They have other wells that they're servicing, but it may be because the well's gone bad, the pump's gone bad, the electrical's gone bad. There's other problems. Those were all weeded out. We asked them, okay, what about the ones that are specifically have gone dry because of falling water levels? There were 4 identified when we started this a few weeks ago. There were 3 when we started. Now there's 4. Yeah. And so we got a little bit nervous about that. They have provided us with some information on all 4 wells. They vary in depth from about 35 feet to over 200 feet. Those are roughly the points and locations of those wells. Obviously, I'm not giving the exact home details of that.
35 feet?
35 feet for
Right.
one of the, yeah, for one of
Look
the,
at
yeah. Yeah.
that. Dig it himself?
Maybe. And then one of the homeowners, it's been indicated that they have approached the city of Hanford, and Hanford has agreed to provide them water. It has not happened yet. There's easements and other things that have to happen in place that, in order for that to occur. But this is an idea of where, when Kauai went in for their request of the state to be never, or to be taken out of probation, or in this case, not actually put into probation, to avoid probation. They basically said, look, we have a well mitigation program. We're dealing with it. And they had already went through and they addressed one of those wells. They did a big ribbon cutting ceremony, all kinds of things. And that was quite effective for them in showing the state that they're serious about taking care of the problem. So Chuck and I have had this conversation a number of times. We're asking the board, and we've addressed it with the grower committee as well. That we think that a similar type of situation would be a very good and beneficial item when we were to approach the state board, not just for the publicity. Don't get me wrong. It's actually to address the problem for well owners here in Mid-Kings River GSA. That's the number one reason. But we do think that this would be a good idea. And what we're looking for is to be able to tell this board that we'd like to move forward with a pilot program. The pilot program is go ahead and to the next slide, please. Basically, what we would do is review each well, determine which would be a best candidate for a pilot program, and then move forward with developing cost estimates for all 4, but then specifically come back to this board with a recommendation of exactly what we should do. Should we do 1? How much is that going to cost? Should we do, 2, 3, 4, and take care of all 4 at one time? So we are going to be putting together some cost estimates and a recommendation back to this board. Now, I should point out that they're all getting interim water today from Self-Help Enterprises. So nobody's going without water. All of them are on the interim water program that Self-Help has, and so therefore, they're getting their water provided at least. But we want to take care of this and fix the problem permanently for all of them, and make this issue go away. We also would then like to show the state that we are able to implement our program. So when we're asking for our request to be taken out of probation, the good actor, we want to be able to show them that we can actually implement the plan that we've agreed to do. So that's kind of where we're at. Chuck, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I have a question. Yeah. And comment at the same time. So we have 4 wells, 35 to 200 feet. So
Yeah.
Are these wells going to be prorated? Is that what you want to look for, like a model to follow, or do these landowners deserve to have a new 450-foot well put in at our expense?
Our current plan outlines that we would provide a well or connection to a water system to be able to provide that house with an adequate supply of water.
But their well went dry. The 35-foot well was probably done in the 30s, right? And so are we responsible for a prime new 6.5 horse, 3.5 horse submersible pump in a well like that for somebody when they only had, it started off as a hand pump?
Our plan currently doesn't have any provisions to talk about pro rata or
I know I lost a
Yeah.
well. I lost a well years ago, back in '97 or so, where pump company came out and they're scrubbing it, and the guy ran the brushes to the bottom of the bowl, got the brushes hung up at the bottom, collapsed the column pipe, collapsed the well, and then they had to cut the cable off, leave it in there, and so he wasn't responsible for a whole new well. He was only responsible for the life left in that well.
Mhm.
And so that's what I would like to see, is the life left in that well, but not provide, I mean, anybody could use this at this point and say, well, my well was fine till, my neighbor put his new well in. There's a life expectancy of a well. I mean, if you drilled it in 1946, you're probably at the end of your time. I don't have a problem building a model around this program. I just don't want people to start taking advantage of it, because we have growers that want to stay in business. So therefore, they need to buy me a new well.
I understand. Based upon the current policy, we don't have that in there. We can look at revising the policy to amend that. Like Amir said, what we're hoping to be able to do by looking at these and possibly resolving these 4 issues would be is so that at the end of March, when we submit our plan to the state, we're able to also let them know that we have addressed all of the dry wells that are in the Mid-Kings, and we are proactively resolving the issues. I do understand your concern.
Well, it worked both ways. So if you have a grower, so I had a neighbor that he built a new well. It was built in 1946. It was a 150-foot, 160-foot well. It went dry in 2022, I think, something like that. And so he drilled a new well, 480 feet. It was $25,000, which is fine. But then the motor went out in 2024, and the water table was back up at 80 feet. So was he really out of water, or just temporarily out of water? And if we were in there and we drilled a new well, we'd have been taken for a new well. There's going to be another 50, 60 years of life on that property, when there was no investment for, I don't know, 1946 till now, 60, 70 years. Are we responsible for that? So there's got to be a plan, a pro rata plan, that we're responsible for the remaining life of that well, if there is any. I don't think a 35-foot well has a life. 150-foot, maybe a little bit. 250, probably so. But you see what I'm getting at? I mean,
do.
And also it works the other way. If I'm putting on water on my ground and I help their well, do I get reimbursed? I mean, I just dumped a bunch of surface water on my ground, and then so do they pay me now at that point because they have a good well? You're going to get that argument.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
And we can look at the possibility of revising that plan in the future. We do have some other plans that we're trying to push forward, though. So if
Yeah, no, I get it. We need to look good in the eyes of the state. I know
bring it
that
up
I got a
following
phone
once we
call
get a
from,
complete package policy and GSP put together to be with something that we definitely will go back and look
there are
at.
people out there waiting for us to get this plan in place so they can get their well replaced. And I want to make sure that we can replace the remainder life of the well, but we're not responsible for 100%. It's your property. As a property owner, you should take care of your own property. You sat with me through Hardwick Water.
Yeah.
Their well broke. It had nothing to do with being out of water. It was lack of repair and lack of maintenance. So therefore, they felt, and it was on TV in Hawaii, that we weren't taking care of our community because their well went bad. Well, it was bad because they didn't maintain it. They had 2 or 3 pumps in the same hole. So at some point, there's got to be evaluation process.
And we do have the evaluation process in place right now with our current plan. So in order for the well to qualify for a program, it does have to relate to the water depletion occurring and showing that it's the lowering of the water table that is causing the problem, not that they've failed to maintain their well. And yes, their water standing at 80 feet, but their pumps down at 120, and it just doesn't work.
Okay.
It has to be something related to the GSA.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Continue.
Kimber got it.
Oh, Kimber?
I have a question. Okay, is there any way possible that it could be in situations like that, whenever they evaluate it, that there could be a lien put on the property so that ultimately the GSA can recoup the cost? So if and when down the road property were ever to be sold?
That is something that I've discussed with the mayor briefly, and it's something that will be considered into the future where it could be a zero interest loan, so that upon sale of the property, the GSA could be reimbursed for its expenses. And that way we are still able to show that we're providing the property or the resident of that home with adequate water supply. We're resolving the situation. And that might be something that does come in the near future.
Thank you.
I got a question too, Mr. Chair.
It's good.
Just so I noticed in your map, I'm assuming that the red dots were the four wells.
Yes,
So
sorry, should have
some
made
of them
that clear.
kind of in the northeast portion of the county, at least 4 miles, maybe north of the city of Hanford, and the other are kind of southeast portion of the city of Hanford, maybe. Do we know like those? So the top two that are up there on Excelsior Avenue, are those the 35-foot wells or are those the 200-foot wells? Just curious.
They're the shallower wells.
Those are shallower. So when you guys go with this methodology, I'm just trying to educate myself on this. Then do you look and go, well, how many 40-foot wells do we have in the neighborhood?
Yeah.
And you see where I'm going with that? Like to mitigate kind of on what Supervisor Verboen just mentioned that are we gonna have to start picking up these others that have their well only dug 50 feet and that's the next one to go?
Yeah, that was the reason for our well registry, is exactly what you just said, is to find out if there's a problem, how many more could be at risk, and what else we need to be thinking about in that area. Should we be looking at a more regional solution rather than just individual wells at a time? Because we don't want to replace one well at a time.
And these are residential.
Yes, they're only domestic. Yes.
And I don't know if you have an answer. I mean, is there any clue like how many others are projected to?
We have an estimate based on the well database that the state gave us. We think that well database, we know it has some concerns and it grossly, I think, overestimates the number, but we do have a number that's actually in the GSP.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, so I know we're in my area, I replenish plenty of wells when I put surface water on, and you can see it. I mean, you can see it if you test a well. The one well on the edge of Hanford, it may have gone dry because the house has moved out there and there's not farming that ground anymore. They're not putting any surface water on it. So we might have created a problem by limiting the farming access to it. So there's plenty of hypotheticals here. I just don't want to get stuck going down the wrong avenue too far. Yes, sir. When Valley left, he had done a meeting. It's all right. We got a quorum still.
But just to recap for me, so if I understand you guys correct, basically you're concerned about the precedents, right? So the folks don't take advantage of us, but Chuck, we're basically saying that we should pass it as is. We don't know, we can do an addendum or an amendment, something like that. Is that accurate?
Yes, utilizing the existing policy that's in place right now and looking down the road to modify our program or policy to come in more in alignment with the desire of the board, but having these taken off the plate so that when we do go present our finalized GSP to the State Water Board, that we don't have any lingering dry wells out there. We're able to show them that we are good actors and that we should be excluded from probation.
Yeah. I'm okay with this. I just want to make sure we look at all the variables and get on with it. We can't put a plan in place until we do the evaluation, and when these are good 4 wells to do the test on to get a good base. Am I correct?
I believe that these represent a good variety of wells to be a good test.
Do you need a motion? Are you done?
I don't think we need a motion on this one, as your board did give us direction to continue pursuing. We just wanted to bring it before you because we did have the locations for you on this at this meeting so that you could see where they are, give you some information about the depth of the wells, and we will come back with some numbers to your next meeting.
Very good. Yeah, just keep an eye on it and just take our considerations of what could have been or what could have done. I mean, as a property owner, you have some responsibility to make sure you have access to water yourself.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, next item.
Okay, next item is now we're on F. And this is to consider resolution to establish the subsidence management policy. And I'm going to walk you through what the subsidence management plan is. Next slide, please. So The idea here is we have groundwater allocation policy. It allows us to continue to pump. It also allows us to continue to pump in overdraft. And we know that that's what the transitional pumping, and that as that transitional pumping starts to reduce over the next 15 years down to zero, it becomes just a sustainable yield that's left. And by 2040, we're pumping sustainable yield. So we know we have some excess pumping that we're allowing for that soft landing, or softer landing, I should say. And the purpose of the subsidence management plan was specifically to address if during that time period and any time that we have and continue to have a concern about subsidence, what are we going to do and what steps are we willing to take in order to have a certain triggers and then specific actions that we would take at that time. So we have enforceable actions, and then we want to avoid the MTs there stand for minimum thresholds. That's the maximum level of subsidence that we can have before we have some undesirable results and undesirable items happening to critical infrastructure. So the first thing we basically said is that we were going to divvy up the entire GSA into these grids. They're 2 sections by 2 section grids roughly. Some of them are obviously are a little bit different shapes as we get along the border there. And then we were going to look at the subsidence along each of those grids and look at areas where we have the most subsidence. We originally had a start date of 2023 for this program. As we met with our surrounding subbasins, the Kuya and the Tule to the east, and then on the west side to the west of the Tulare Lake subbasin that borders South Fork. They all started with 2020 as their starting date. And as we had these debates and discussions with them, we realized that we cannot be out of sync with the rest of the area. So we moved everything back to 2020. The concern when you move things back to a start date of 2020 is that we've had a dry year in 21 and 22, and that a certain level of subsidence has already occurred in those 2 years. So we went through, we looked at those, and we upped the average amount of subsidence. When you look at a full-size picture of this map, it has how much subsidence has occurred across each of those grids since the start date of 2020, January of 2020. We then set a maximum level of subsidence that we could match, or that we wanted to maintain it at. We matched our neighbors on the borders. So to the east, we matched what Kauai and Tule were doing. To the west, we match what South Fork is doing in terms of the amount of subsidence. The amount of subsidence varies from roughly about 4 feet in some areas along that border to primarily 7 feet in most places. Again, start date is 2020. In some cases, we've already had 2+ feet of subsidence since then. What we did then is say, okay, we want to identify any high risk areas. Those were defined as when we hit 40% of the maximum allowable subsidence at that point. And when we hit 40% in that particular zone, not across the entire GSA, but in those particular zones, we would start to make sure that everybody is complying with our well registration, and at that point, move everybody to meters as well. So we know exactly how much pumping is occurring, and most importantly, we know exactly what zone above or below the clay that they're taking that water out of. They then have to move to monthly reporting of their pumping. And then we, in turn, would start to look at what our options are as a GSA, and if there are some management actions, other things that we can do to assist, try to figure out, working with surface water deliveries and others to see what we can do to try and bring more water to that particular area, or if there's other things that the GSA can do to encourage recharge, things of that nature. So that essentially is, as soon as there's a high risk area, we notify those people in that area. We let them know that they're in a high risk area. We tell them what they're going to have to comply with, and then what our actions that the GSA is going to take. So that's kind of our early warning scenario. Next slide, please. Then we have what we call a corrective subsidence management order, kind of a fancy term for basically letting people know that they are now exceeding one of these three criterias at 50% of that minimum threshold level, or if we start to have impacts to critical infrastructure, then we are going to essentially say that there's no pumping of any recharge credits. So if they have put water in the ground and they have recharge credits on their account, there's no recharge credit from the lower aquifer, that meaning below the Corcoran clay. They cannot transfer credits into that area, and that there's no new wells that we're going to allow in the lower aquifer at that point, because we are now at 50% of that, and we're starting to see impacts from either subsidence or impacts to critical infrastructure. If we get to 75% of that value, then we're essentially going to start taking away their transitional allocation in the lower aquifer. They can still pump it in the upper aquifer. And then at 100% of that MT, we're basically saying that there's no more pumping from any well that's contributing to subsidence. So these are pretty strict, guidelines that we're putting in place here and requirements that we're putting in place. So we are taking the subsidence issue very seriously. We realize that in some areas that we are probably going to hit these requirements for subsidence before we actually see the groundwater levels necessarily drop and become a concern. The subsidence values may be the ones that are actually limiting your pumping in those areas. But on the other hand, it also, we have to take the subsidence concern seriously. We know that we already have impacts to some of our north-south canals in the Mid-Kings River GSA in certain areas. And that's one of the reasons that we included the language about impacts to critical infrastructure. As we met with some of our infrastructure owners, we were concerned that these requirements at just 50 or 75% were not sufficient, that we would continue to impact that critical infrastructure. And instead, we added that language as, hey, if that impacts are starting to occur, we may need to take more significant actions on behalf of the GSA. Okay, let's see. There should be one more slide. So as I already mentioned, we first things first, we would identify critical infrastructure. We've already done that. We are starting discussions with the infrastructure owners, certainly the ones that we are aware of. We've started those conversations. If there are impacts to infrastructures, we would then, the next step is to investigate. And if those impacts are due to groundwater pumping, which is the only thing we control, then we would start to look at what those allocations are doing in just those areas that are impacted. And I know that your next question is going to be, well, what's the critical infrastructure? So that's the next slide. And so we've gone through and identified some of the critical infrastructure in the area, meaning the canals, the ditches, roads for the community, for the Kings County, the highways, railroad, the high-speed rail, and then domestic and industrial and supply wells and industrial wells. So we've identified some of what we were considering critical infrastructure. We're in the process of contacting all of those landowners, or infrastructure owners, I should say, as well. So I think I'll open that up to questions at this time, Mr. Chair, on this policy.
We told High Rail to put it on 99 and don't put it through us because we had a problem with ground subsiding. So that's their problem.
Yeah.
They would have known that had they done a programmatic environmental impact review, which they did not do in King County.
Yeah. I think for high-speed rail, from what the conversations that I've been involved in, their concern is more on the flooding. If you end up with some low spots and they have flooding in areas that they weren't expecting, it's not necessarily just a subsidence by itself. It's some of the flooding concerns.
Well, they didn't help our flooding in 23 when they blocked everything off and the water had nowhere to go, so it kept spreading it wider. So yeah, they're kind of the problem. And that's the state's priority right now. So that's what they chose. Any questions for Amir? This is an action item too. So.
Yeah. So just for example, so if I'm looking at, say, whatever, just pick a zone, but say zone 42. And, 100% of the threshold, it only gets, these rules only get applied towards that zone, correct?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's the whole zone, a part of the zone, what is it?
No, so what we would do is we start to get towards any of these numbers, we start our investigation and we look at what's actually happening in the area. So the idea is we can narrow down to just that zone and find out what and who might be causing that. Can we address those specific pumpers? And the idea is if you're pumping from a very shallow zone, you're not contributing to the subsidence. We're going to focus on the people that are pumping below the clay and have most likely be the ones that are impacting those, and we can start to deal with the allocations specific to those pumpers.
So I know in zone 37 is the yellow one. It's 40.40 and a half, whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a well there, deep well, possibly causing subsidence that belongs to the city of Hanford.
Yeah.
So who tells the city of Hanford they can't pump water anymore?
Yeah, that's so. I was at a meeting just a few weeks ago with Aaron Fukuda, who most of you probably know with Tulare Irrigation District, and Aaron and I were having this exact question about how do we deal with the cities that may be contributing to the subsidence, because he has some of the same concerns. And that's going to be a very tricky issue. There's some legal precedent that's out there. There's how the state's going to react to us going and telling a city that they can't pump. So that's a very, very sensitive one. And I think, some of this is going to be, quite frankly, trailblazing, right? As we start to have these conversations with the communities and what we can realistically can and cannot do.
So the way I see it is if the state's making us do a dry well mitigation plan and we have to help people that lost their well,
right?
If we have a residential area that has a deep well causing subsidence, they're going to force us to move that well at the grower's expense if we want to stay farming.
That's not the intent of the well mitigation, but that is going to be part of the discussion with the city in any community about what we would do if they're contributing. I don't have a good
wells. We can ask them to adjust it to move around, spread their subsidence over a broader area, I guess.
We would definitely be looking to see if you can increase pumping elsewhere to make up for that and reduce pumping in the areas that we're having subsidence.
This makes Brad John's correct because he says he can get them water. So,
yeah.
Just saying.
I have a question. Are all of the city wells all pumping from below the clay level?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yes. City of Hanford wells, yes.
Any other questions? This is an action item. I'll need a motion to move by Supervisor Robinson, second by Supervisor Thayer. All in favor? Oh, any questions from the audience? None? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Robert Thayer.
Yes.
Kimber Regan.
Yes.
Okay. 4 in favor, 1 absent, 2 absent. Are we good? What we got next? I lost my page. Board member announcements. What's the first? Kimber? You good?
I'm good.
Right there.
I don't have any announcements. I just want, there's about 20 some odd people here in the room this afternoon, and just thank you for your time being here. I know Supervisor Raboon, you said you attended the other meeting last week, and I've been to a handful of them, and the people that are in those rooms are good people. I wish more from the community were involved in this, because I think at some point in time, as we've said, there's going to be a tipping point, and I hope there isn't a big pouring out of extremely upset people that have had the opportunity to be before your guys' committee and this board here now. I can tell you just from an outsider, the last group that had this, it really seemed that there wasn't a lot of communication, and a lot of people were upset about that. And I think this has been a polar opposite. And so for those of you who have been involved in it and who are helping guide and shape this, just from me, just thank you. I know it's complicated. I've said it, I saw Garrett got up and left, but I told him when he talked to me about it that it's, that the state has asked us to kill ourselves. And we're just having to choose the methodology and how we're going to go about doing it. And there's some other things that people in our community need to be wary of and leery of. The economic impact to our farming operations and our ag community and the number of people that it employs in this county. None of it's good that this is happening. But not only is in concentrating on this, but how do we protect what we have and the families that we have that are depending on the ag community moving forward. But thank you for being here. That's
Very
what I
good.
wanted to
Thank you.
express.
Supervisor Robinson.
First, yeah, you guys are a dream team and I appreciate you guys 100%. But normally you guys vote unanimously, and on that subsidence policy, you didn't. There was one member that didn't vote that way, and I'm curious as to why. What is the point against? Am I looking at him?
Because there's areas that are gonna, that yellow area you're talking about, like 40%. Not for that, the area that they're representing, and they didn't. There's a few things in there about identifying critical structure. And maybe a few things that we could. Anyways, they're just looking out for their area and the neighbors around that. They thought, it's already sinking. We had to go back to 2020. It's sinking quick and go back to what a city wells and other big wells around them. They thought, yeah, the action items were going to. That wasn't me. I'm just kind of speaking on.
Right.
That's all. I don't recall it.
But also there's a theory out there that even if you stop pumping, subsidence will continue. So, that's why stopping pumping didn't necessarily stop the problem.
I do want to say something after all. One concern I have, I'm representing city council, but also taking and trying to represent the farmers and the water. And I do have concerns because the state is pushing the city to take and add more and more and more houses. And I was already had the understanding that the city does pump water from below the clay level. And I don't like it because I feel like it's substantially contributing to the problem that the farmers are having to deal with. And I'm trying to figure out a solution and everything else. So, and I know that everybody else is trying to figure out a solution, but I don't want people to look at me as if I'm part of the problem. I know that there's a problem, and I know that we've got to find a solution for our farmers because the farmers, it's not just you maintaining your livelihood, it's also you maintaining the food that everybody needs. And if we don't support the farmers, we don't have anything because everybody needs food. Anyway, I do appreciate you.
Very good. So I'll just add to that, we need to work on our own GSA, pay attention to our own, stay in our own lane, get this done. We don't need to be at odds with each other in the public's eye. It's going to show diversity, and we're going to have a problem with the state that we can't come together. So I'd say focus on our own GSA, and just get this thing and start working it, and we can make adjustments as we go. So with that, we have no closed session. Do we have future agenda items?
Likely the allocation policy coming to your next meeting on December 9th.
Very good. This meeting is adjourned until December 9th, 2025, 1 p.m. Thank you.